Listen to that sound. That is not a soundtrack. It is the real radio voice of Saturn. Invisible storms deep inside the planet twist powerful magnetic fields, sending waves of energy across millions of kilometers of empty space. We cannot hear them with our ears, but when scientists convert those radio waves into sound, this is what Saturn has been saying all along. For centuries, we looked up and saw perfection, a golden world wrapped in brilliant rings, floating silently against the darkness like a jewel placed carefully inside the solar system. It became a symbol of elegance, of balance, of peace. But the universe has a habit of hiding its most violent secrets behind its most beautiful faces, because Saturn is not peaceful. It is a giant made almost entirely of hydrogen and helium, spinning so fast that it cannot even remain round. Day after day, year after year, the planet rotates with such incredible speed that it bulges outward, flattening itself into a shape more like a pumpkin than a perfect sphere. Its atmosphere never truly rests. Its storms refuse to die. Its gravity has the power to tear entire worlds apart, and everything that makes Saturn beautiful exists because something else was destroyed. Today, we're going beyond the postcard, beyond the golden clouds, beyond the rings that have inspired humanity for centuries. Because Saturn isn't simply the most beautiful planet in the solar system, it may also be its greatest illusion. From Earth, Saturn's rings appear impossibly smooth, perfect circles, thin bands of gold suspended in space, so flawless they almost look painted onto the planet itself. It's easy to imagine them as something solid, almost peaceful. But if you could fly into those rings, that illusion would disappear within seconds. Instead of graceful bands, you would find yourself inside a storm. Not a storm of clouds, a storm of ice. Countless frozen fragments race around Saturn at tens of thousands of kilometers every hour. Some are no larger than grains of sand. Others rise like mountains drifting through the darkness. They collide constantly, breaking apart, reforming, and continuing a dance that has lasted for millions of years. Imagine an endless blizzard stretching nearly 300,000 kilometers across space, yet so astonishingly thin that in many places, its thickness is no greater than a 10-story building. A cosmic blade so wide it could swallow Earth many times over, yet thin enough to almost disappear when viewed from the side. From a distance, it looks silent. Up close, it would sound like countless collisions echoing through emptiness, every impact reshaping the rings piece by piece. Sometimes the most violent places in the universe wear the calmest faces, which raises an uncomfortable question. Where did all of this ice come from? Scientists are still searching for the complete answer, but one leading hypothesis begins with a tragedy. Long ago, a moon wandered too close to Saturn. It crossed an invisible boundary known as the Roche limit, the point where a planet's gravity becomes stronger than a moon's own ability to hold itself together. The moon didn't explode, it unraveled. Mountains became dust. Ancient glaciers were ripped apart. Entire landscapes dissolved into countless frozen fragments until nothing recognizable remained. If this hypothesis is correct, then Saturn's rings are not ornaments. They are ruins. The scattered remains of a world that no longer exists. Every time we admire Saturn through a telescope, we may be looking at a planetary graveyard, but the rings are only the beginning, because above Saturn's north pole, the laws of nature appear to draw with a ruler. If Saturn's rings are its most beautiful feature, its north pole may be its most unsettling. Nature doesn't usually make straight lines. Drop a stone into water and you'll see circles. Watch a hurricane from space and you'll find spirals, even galaxies curve. The universe seems to prefer chaos over geometry. And yet, at Saturn's north pole, there is a perfect hexagon. Not a symbol, not a trick of light. A storm. 6 razor-straight sides stretching across a region nearly 30,000 kilometers wide. Large enough to fit 4 Earths side by side. It has been spinning for as long as we've been able to observe it, perhaps for centuries. No one knows exactly why it exists. Computer models suggest that powerful jet streams racing through Saturn's atmosphere naturally settle into this strange shape. But even after decades of study, the hexagon remains one of the solar system's greatest unsolved puzzles. At its center, the mystery grows even stranger. A massive vortex spins endlessly like a giant hurricane trapped inside a geometric prison. Its deep red eye stares into the atmosphere below, while towering walls of cloud plunge hundreds of kilometers downward. Imagine standing above it. There would be no land, no horizon, only an endless abyss of swirling clouds disappearing into darkness. No matter how much we study Saturn, it always seems to keep one secret hidden beneath another, and sometimes those secrets refuse to stay buried. Most of the time, Saturn appears calm. The golden bands drift quietly around the planet. The storms hide beneath layers of cloud. It almost convinces you that nothing ever changes. Then, roughly once every Saturnian year, the giant wakes up. Astronomers call it the Great White Spot. The name sounds harmless. It isn't. Without warning, brilliant white clouds erupt from deep inside Saturn's atmosphere, punching through the golden haze like an underwater volcano breaking the surface of an ocean. Within weeks, the storm grows so enormous that it wraps completely around the planet. Imagine waking up one morning to discover a single thunderstorm stretching all the way around Earth. A storm with lightning thousands of times more energetic than the strongest bolts ever recorded on our planet. For months, Saturn's atmosphere churns with violent convection, dragging fresh ammonia ice upward from its hidden depths. The entire face of the planet changes. Then, almost as suddenly as it appeared, the storm fades. The clouds settle. The giant becomes quiet once more for another 30 years. Saturn doesn't rage every day. It waits, and perhaps that's what makes it so unforgettable. Because beneath those calm golden clouds, something is always waiting. As strange as Saturn's storms are, its greatest surprise isn't in the sky. It's the planet itself. At first glance, Saturn looks impossibly massive, nearly 10 times wider than Earth, heavy enough to command more than 100 moons, powerful enough to shape an entire miniature solar system around itself. It feels like the definition of weight, but appearances can be deceptive. Saturn is the least dense planet in the solar system. In fact, its average density is lower than water. Think about that for a moment. If it were somehow possible to build an ocean large enough, an ocean wider than the Sun itself, Saturn wouldn't sink, it would float. The image feels almost absurd, a planet weighing more than 90 Earths, floating like a beach ball. Of course, no such ocean could ever exist, but the thought changes something. It reminds us that the universe isn't obligated to behave the way our intuition expects. Saturn isn't solid beneath its clouds. It is a vast world made mostly of hydrogen and helium compressed under immense gravity into forms of matter unlike anything we experience on Earth. The deeper you descend, the stranger everything becomes. Gas slowly gives way to liquid. Hydrogen begins behaving like a metal. Electric currents race through those hidden layers, generating one of the most powerful magnetic fields in the solar system. We still don't know exactly what lies at Saturn's center. A rocky core, a fuzzy mixture of ice, rock, and fluid. The answer remains buried beneath tens of thousands of kilometers of crushing pressure. Every layer we peel back reveals another mystery waiting underneath. But Saturn's greatest mysteries aren't always found on the planet itself. Some are quietly orbiting around it. Saturn is surrounded by more than 140 known moons. Most are frozen, many are scarred, some are little more than captured rocks drifting through space, but one of them knows exactly how to fool you. Its name is Titan. At first glance, Titan feels strangely familiar. Imagine standing on its surface, an orange sky stretches above you. Dark clouds drift overhead, rain begins to fall. In the distance, rivers wind across the landscape, feeding lakes that disappear beyond the horizon. For one impossible moment, you could almost believe you found another Earth. Then the illusion begins to crack. The rivers aren't water, the lakes aren't water, even the rain isn't water. They're made of liquid methane and ethane, natural gas that remains liquid only because Titan is unimaginably cold. The temperature hovers near minus 179 degrees Celsius. Cold enough that water behaves like rock. If mountains existed here on Earth, they would be carved from stone on Titan. They would be carved from ice. The vast dunes covering its equator aren't made of sand either. They're built from tiny grains of complex hydrocarbons, dark organic particles, sculpted by alien winds over millions of years. It feels familiar only because nature has repeated the same patterns using entirely different ingredients. Titan isn't a second Earth, it's Earth rewritten in another language. And if one moon can imitate our world so convincingly, what else might Saturn be hiding, far beyond Titan? Another moon quietly circles Saturn. Small, bright, almost perfectly white. For decades, Enceladus looked unremarkable, just another frozen world. Then Cassini flew past it, and everything changed. Near the moon's south pole, the spacecraft found enormous fractures stretching across the ice. Scientists nicknamed them the tiger stripes. From those scars, the moon was bleeding. Towering geysers of water vapor erupted into space at hundreds of meters per second, carrying tiny grains of ice far above the surface. Some of those particles escaped entirely feeding Saturn's outer rings. But the real discovery wasn't the ice. It was what the ice revealed. Something beneath the surface was warm enough to keep an entire ocean from freezing. Think about that. A moon barely 500 kilometers across, floating in the darkness nearly 1.5 billion kilometers from the sun, still manages to keep liquid water alive beneath kilometers of solid ice. Saturn's immense gravity gently squeezes Enceladus as it travels around the planet. Not enough to crush it, just enough to flex it over and over again, like kneading a ball of dough. That constant stretching generates heat deep inside the moon. Enough heat to power a hidden ocean. Cassini flew through those icy plumes and found salt organic molecules, hydrogen, ingredients that here on Earth are closely associated with environments where life can thrive. No one knows whether anything is alive beneath that ice. Perhaps the ocean is empty. Perhaps it has always been empty. Or perhaps in complete darkness, beneath kilometers of frozen silence, something has been swimming for millions of years. We came to Saturn expecting rings instead. We found one of the most promising places in the solar system to search for life. But discoveries like this always come with a cost. None of these discoveries happened by accident. Someone had to go there. Someone had to stay. That someone was Cassini. Launched in 1997, the spacecraft spent nearly 7 years crossing the solar system before finally reaching Saturn. Then it stayed. For 13 extraordinary years, it slipped between the rings, watched storms grow and disappear, mapped mysterious moons, flew through the icy plumes of Enceladus, and transformed Saturn from a distant point of light into a place. By 2017, Cassini was running out of fuel. NASA faced an impossible decision: leave the spacecraft drifting through Saturn's system or end the mission on its own terms. There was another reason for that choice. Moons like Enceladus and Titan might possess environments capable of supporting life. Even a tiny Earth microbe carried unknowingly aboard Cassini could compromise future discoveries. If humanity ever searched those oceans for life, we had to be certain that any life we found wasn't our own. So Cassini was given one final command dive. On September 15, 2017, the spacecraft entered Saturn's atmosphere for the last time. As the atmosphere grew thicker, the spacecraft fought to keep its antenna pointed toward Earth. Every second mattered. Every packet of data was another glimpse into a world we had never touched. Eventually, the atmosphere became too dense. The signal weakened. Then, it was gone. No explosion. No final message. Just silence. Cassini became part of the planet. It had spent 13 years trying to understand. Its mission ended. Its discoveries didn't. Saturn feels eternal. It has watched continents drift across Earth. It was already circling the sun long before humanity built its first cities. It will still be there long after every skyscraper, every monument, and every name we remember today has faded into history. And yet, even Saturn is changing. Every second, tiny fragments of ice break away from the rings. Some collide, some escape. Many slowly spiral downward, pulled back by Saturn's gravity in a gentle shower scientists call ring rain. The process is almost impossible to notice in a single lifetime. But the universe has never been in a hurry. Given enough time, even masterpieces disappear. Scientists estimate that, in roughly 100 million years, Saturn's brilliant rings may fade away almost completely. To us, 100 million years feels unimaginable. To the cosmos, it is little more than a passing moment. Some distant civilization may one day look towards Saturn and see nothing unusual, just another gas giant drifting through the darkness. They may never know that it once wore the most beautiful crown in the solar system. Perhaps that's why Saturn matters, not because its rings will last forever, but because they won't. The universe reminds us again and again that beauty isn't defined by permanence. Stars die, galaxies collide, even planets change. Nothing remains untouched by time. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the things we treasure most aren't beautiful because they last forever. Maybe they're beautiful because one day they won't. Somewhere tonight, Saturn continues to spin. Its storms still rage. Its rings continue their slow, silent dance. Enceladus still hides its ocean beneath the ice. Titan still waits beneath its orange sky. None of it changes because we're watching. The universe doesn't perform for us, it simply exists. And yet, for one brief moment in history, a small civilization on a tiny blue world looked up and understood just a little more than it did yesterday. This has been the Cosmic Observer. Until our next journey, keep wondering.